Hi, I'm Nina here again today with my husband Aaron. And if you have watched our last Facebook Live, you know that we have decided to downsize finally. And we have struggled with that decision, but we're here today to kind of tell our story about how we arrived at that decision. And I think it may help those of you out there, and I know there are many people who are looking at that, especially at our age and stage in life. And I, as a realtor, I've helped many people with that process, but it's a little bit different when you're doing it yourself, and there's a lot of emotion in it, of course. And so I thought it would be helpful to talk about that today.
So how did you arrive at the decision? What was it, a process? Was it an overnight thing? Like, how did it go, Aaron?
It was a long process that then became almost an overnight thing. We moved here about 35 years ago.
33.
I have to be very, very careful. We moved here 33 years ago, and I joined a medical practice here. I had been on the faculty of one of the medical schools in New York, and we had one 3-year-old child, and our daughter, our younger one, was inside.
On the way.
She was a native Albanian. She was actually born in Albany a few days after.
3 weeks after we
Oh
moved
my
in.
gosh,
Yeah.
wow.
We looked all over the Capital District and took advice of lots of people. We met lots of new people whom we didn't know at all.
Who were very welcoming and wonderful to us.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
extraordinarily wonderful. They have really become our family. And many of them live right here in Del Mar. We liked Del Mar from the beginning, and we came to love Del Mar. And we liked this house from the beginning.
So describe the house in general. Like, you were new parents with young kids and one on the way. So what were you looking for in a house then versus, fast forward to now?
Well, at that point, was a stay-at-home mother with a 3-year-old and one on the way, and I really wanted to have a kitchen that was open to the family room, sort of, so that I could see what was going on with the kids while I was doing things. I wanted a laundry that was on the first floor, and this house met our needs, and it was near the elementary school, and I met a couple of people in the neighborhood, and there was very, very little on the market at that time. That was just maybe not quite like it is now, but it was really a seller's market. So the realtor would call and say, okay, there's a house, you have to come today, and we would drive up from the New York area, and it was not so easy with the 3-year-old, but we did it. And then we moved in, and that was great, right? And we also wanted a short commute to work, because he was going to be
I was covering
working
a lot of
hospitals at that time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And we were looking for a central location that was near the various hospitals and near the offices of the group that I was joining.
And with a highly rated school district.
And with a highly rated school district.
Right.
Yep. So you found all of that, and you lived here with raising your children, and now they're obviously adults themselves, and you have grandchildren.
Right.
And so now let's kind of fast forward to present day, where you said all of a sudden, Aaron, it was a quick decision. What made it a quick decision?
Well, we started talking seriously about moving probably 3 or 4 years ago. And the first decision was that we would remain in the Albany area. Our son lives in Los Angeles. He produces television programs. But our daughter lives here, and we have 2 little grandchildren, and we decided we wanted
Adorable.
to be near them and take part in their growing up years. I also, about 4 years ago, started thinking seriously about retiring. I was in the best of health, and there was no apparent reason to retire except that I was approaching the mid-70s and had and decided that it was time to retire and read some of the books that I had collected over the previous 30 years that I had had no time to read.
And he had worked enough for 2 lifetimes, so.
You traveled around the world with your work, with your medical work, right?
Yes, it's true.
And spoke around the world. So then what happened?
Well, what happened is that I started to not feel so well about a year and a half ago, and was being evaluated as the patient this time, and nothing specific really was found. And then we went to visit a friend of ours in Florida, and we were sitting as passengers in the back seat of his car, and then he got out and opened the door to let me out, and I fell over literally on my face in the parking lot, and was otherwise okay. I was thoroughly evaluated and was found that I had Parkinson's disease, which tends to be progressive, although it's highly variable, and people often live for a long time with it, and sometimes it's very rapidly progressive and sometimes it's not. And we're hoping that I have a form that won't be. But my perception became that it was important to get a house that didn't have steps, so that if the worst happened, we would be able to have a bedroom on the main floor. And so that really became the primary goal. We wanted to stay in the same area. We thought about adding a bedroom to this house, which doesn't have a bedroom on the main floor. All the bedrooms are on the second floor. But we decided it really wasn't practical to do that. And so we started to look at houses that had various requirements that Nina will tell you about. But from my perspective, the requirement was that it have a main floor, bedroom and bath.
Yeah, well, and the other, and we would look, as a realtor, I looked at everything that came up online, and we did go to see a lot of the places, but we'd always come home and say, oh, we're so comfortable here. This place is so nice. We've done some things to it in recent years, a lot of things to make it, more comfortable and updated. And it's like, we're still at this moment both okay, but I broke my wrist this winter from falling, and we both are at the age when things can happen, and we have a diagnosis that so we really thought planning for the future was good, but it still didn't seem right. The other issue was that he has a grand piano that he brought back from his Navy days in Japan when he served as a physician in Yokosuka.
I have a grand piano that's been joint property for 40 years, but it's still mine.
Well, right. I mean, but it's your most, and he plays it. He's now in retirement taking lessons again, and he does play beautifully, although he says he doesn't. But
oh, you really do.
Right.
Beautiful.
And so we needed a place to put that piano where he could enjoy it, and that is not so easy to find in a one level. And I came to decide that I wanted to have a place that had a homeowners association, because instead of another house, a ranch house, because then the maintenance is on us. And it just gets harder. Even if we don't do everything ourselves, you have to find people to do it, and it's
So the HOA
covers lawn care, landscaping, snow removal, which is and it's just done, which would be easier. So those two things. So we kept looking and nothing seemed right. And then one day I saw something come up on the multiple listing service, and I said, oh, here's another one that's come up. I don't even want to look anymore because nothing was right. And Aaron said, oh, let's just go look at it. So we did, and surprisingly, we both liked it. So we liked the location, and we liked the layout, and it could fit this piano. So, and that's a really, really important thing, and it's important to me too, because I want you to be happy, and if it gives you happiness, it's worth everything. So
let me interrupt. Your son Ben is watching, so say hello to Ben.
Hi Ben. Good morning. morning out there. Wow, you're up early. Not that early.
Okay, so you had to think about what were the things that you wanted to go into your new house, right? And you were also, you have 2 grandchildren. So talk about that factor as well, like space in the new place. Is it really downsizing or is it shifting? Like what?
Well, it's smaller, but it's on 1 floor and 3 bedrooms, so there is enough room for my little granddaughters to have their sleepover room, or Ben and Jason to stay when they come home, which unfortunately isn't that often, but it's...
Did you hear that, Ben? Time to come visit
it's just
again.
Hard.
He was just here.
Right.
He's planning to come again in a few weeks.
Yes, right. So, but it's hard when you're on the 2 different coasts. It's hard for us to get there. It's hard for him to come here. So there is enough space, but it is all on 1 floor and with the master bedroom and the laundry. So, has a big basement, but we do not want to fill that basement up with all the junk that's...
Even though
in
I'm
this
very
house.
capable of doing that.
Right. We have to be ruthless. We have to make really good decisions about that.
Yeah, and so that's hard, right? Yeah. That emotional decision of letting go of memories when you hold things. We were just down in the basement, and we'll be doing another video on the decluttering aspect of it. But it's an emotional process because you're looking back on your life, right? Can you talk about that?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm finding it very difficult. Initially, just thinking about leaving, you sort of let go in your mind of your surroundings and the place that kept you safe in lightning storms and rain storms and so on, and the place where lots of wonderful things happened, and the way life goes, some very sad things happened. But when you actually start to take apart the closets and the drawers and the places where all your books on this topic are here, and your summer shirts are here, and your kids' stuff from their 2nd birthday party is here, and the 3rd party, and the 4th party, and the 5th party, it becomes really wrenching, I find, to do it, and I have to almost be forced to do it. Yeah. Fortunately, I have someone who is very effective.
The whip.
But it's hard because you really do go down memory lane.
Oh,
and
that's where so many people get stuck, right? And so what are you... I know we're going to talk about this more in another video, and by the way, Ben says that he loves that you're on talking about this and that you're in the spotlight, and it's such a nice surprise to see you, Ben says. So he's thrilled to see you on here. But it is really emotional, and I think there's usually one person who wants to do a move more than another, and so in your case, you're really quote cracking the whip and kind of getting the motion moving, and but that's hard, right? Like, you've been working all day and then you come home and
it's just exhausting because I'm still working and I have to manage that and then manage this. And I've always been kind of the one who does the household finances and repair, just doing all that. So, but then in addition, it's getting organized. And I think that just starting was the hardest. Now that we've started, and we have a goal, it is much easier. I think for especially my personality and probably yours too, just making a start to do, to just do something to start the process is really, good. And then it kind of build momentum. And I think you get a little less attached as you start to do it, because you realize that you just can't hold on, and I think it gets easier a little bit as you go along.
Yeah.
Well, initially I had a 3-stage staging system to get rid of the junk.
Uh-huh.
And there might be a pile from 1970 here. I would scan it first. I don't mean scan it with a computer, with my eyeballs, and set up a small pile, which became the throw it away pile, and to be checked again. Then I'd go on to the next pile, come back and refine it somewhat further, so that ultimately it was a smaller pile, but it was still a pile, but I had scanned each thing 3 times. Now, after a couple of weeks of this, I scan it once, and it's that.
Wow. So that's major progress.
Yeah.
But if you come upstairs and look at the place, you won't think so.
But it's a process, right?
Yeah.
And how do you do it? Do you just tackle it for an hour and then come back to it when the emotion gets too much? You kind of walk away, or how are you handling that part of it?
A couple of hours and then walk away.
Yeah.
And I've kind of made the decision that after like 7:30 in the evening, we stop and relax a little bit, because it just, you need to kind of, rejuvenate, read, watch something on TV, whatever it is, but just to...
You have to pace yourself.
Right, because otherwise, we don't have the energy level that we did when we moved here 33 years ago, so...
So you're staying in the same town of Bethlehem, right? And you thought about moving to maybe another county with different school taxes and
Right.
things like that. What are you looking forward to in the new house?
Well,
Yeah.
what are we looking for? We're looking forward to decorating it. Even though we have a lot of stuff here, some of which is fairly new because we hadn't planned long-term to move. Not everything will fit and so on, and the rooms are different and sizes are different. So that's the first thing, and I'm really looking forward to that. Over the years, the only thing that we've really disagreed upon is decorating.
Oh.
Well, it's
The
just...
truth is we've gotten through all kinds of crises in life without any problem. But when it comes to decorating...
Well, we have different tastes, but we'll make it work, and it's sort of like a new start. So to make it the way we like it, you know what I mean? Both. And
You're like the people on HGTV,
Right,
right?
exactly.
Total opposites. So what are your styles? How would you describe your style, Aaron?
Very traditional and a little heavy.
Right. Right. He likes solid, dark, and I like light and bright. So that's always going to be, and here he kind of had the living room where nobody goes except him to practice piano. I said, you can do whatever you want in there. But now we don't have that, so we'll have to compromise.
Okay. And so tell us about this process that you're in right now. You haven't closed on the new house. You found the new house. Talk about the process.
Well, yeah, I think maybe we'll go into those details later on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But so the big focus right now is the decluttering. You made the decision. Now you're decluttering, and you're just in the thick of it.
Right.
now.
And then just getting it ready to, put on the market and have, the young people look at it, and hopefully we'll find the right buyer, and that'll be great.
And you'll be hosting another downsizing class this fall, right? And so it's
In
going to be very
October.
different than in previous years, right?
Right. I'll have a lot more photos, and yes, and hopefully by the middle of October, when our downsizing class is October 17th, hopefully we'll be, in our new place. So that will be great, and we'll have a lot to talk about, and you always come to the class, so you'll be able to participate this time.
Yeah, no more sitting in the back of the room
Right,
this time.
right.
You'll be right up in the front
Right,
telling your story.
I'm now a qualified expert as well.
That's right. So,
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to share or talk about what's coming next?
I guess we'll continue to share some of our process with anybody who's interested in watching and possibly going through it themselves. And
And you have a downsizing guide that you...
all right, we have the downsizing guide that I made because of what we were thinking about, and I'd be happy to share that with people if they wish. And yeah, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. And now you're my co-star. So thanks for watching today, and see you soon. Bye-bye.